Um, Hello and welcome to the IMS webinar series. Welcome back for many of you. I am Aaron Blair. I'll be your presenter for the entire 7-week series. I've been working with IMS and Retail Pro for the past 17 years, doing everything from project management to implementation to training. So far in this series, we've covered e-commerce integration to Retail Pro and managing inventory in the first 2 of our 7 webinars. All of these webinars are focused on 3 areas: making money now, getting things done while you have the time, and being ready to open back up, hopefully soon and hopefully already for some of you. So what can you expect from the webinars? Well, first and foremost, you can expect the webinar right here and right now. At the end of the webinar, we'll be addressing questions, so please post them in the questions section of the webinar and in your control panel, and our moderators will organize them to be handled during the Q&A. Webinars should run about 45 minutes to 1 hour. Even with the delay, I feel like we should still stay within that window. And really, that just depends on the quantity and the depth of questions that we get at the end. Normally, this is where I would go ahead and introduce the first poll. But we actually already did that, not realizing we didn't have audio. And again, I appreciate people responding. And I was pleased with the response. It looks like a lot of people are here to see new features and functions and not just because they have to upgrade. And it also really seems like people that this may be a good time for them to do it. And I agree, we're getting a lot of interest and a lot of people on the schedule now for these upgrades. Okay, so we went through the poll results. I guess the last housekeeping item is following each webinar, a recording will be made available to those in attendance to share with other members of your team who are unable to attend. All attendees from these webinars will receive a link to the recordings. Anyone who sat in on the first 2 or even registered for the first 2, you should have already received that link. If you haven't, then please reach out and we'll make that available to you from our YouTube channel. And then someone from our IMS team here will be reaching out to you for some feedback and hopefully to provide you from some one-on-one insight for your specific business needs. So before we talk about Prism, let's do a quick recap of last week's topic, managing inventory. So in the first week, we talked about selling online, and then we talked about how to manage the inventory for those online sales, as well as to make decisions about merchandise that you may be sitting on. Or were sitting on or still are. We've been doing a lot of follow-ups throughout the week, and that's led to many great conversations with customers, with you guys, and some demos as well. So I encourage everyone to please keep communicating with us as your partner, and we want to work with you on whatever we can to help you with your business as it pertains to inventory and point of sale. Today we're going to be switching gears a bit and talking about what's new with Retail Pro. In fact, this week and next week are really tied together as we explore Prism and new reporting options, so be sure to register for that session as well. Overall, yes, today's about seeing Prism, but I wanted to break that down into a few parts. First, we'll talk briefly about Retail Pro version history from 8 to 9 to Prism. Next, we'll cover some of the highlights of Prism, including the Prism architecture, why it's so different and what that actually means to you. And then we'll leave the world of PowerPoint and we'll get a little bit of hands-on with product demo. Okay, Retail Pro version history. Well, there are probably people on here whose Retail Pro experience goes back even earlier than version 8. V8 is as far as we're going to go back today. Mainly because Retail Pro version 8 is 20 years old. And guess what? It's still out there and running. Retail Pro has continued to release updates and patches to account for industry changes such as PCI compliance. And they've released versions simply to provide users with new features. Unfortunately, that had to come to an end for a couple of major reasons. One, it's 20 years old. They have to focus development on the future. It also gets harder to support as new technicians come on board and are not trained on older versions. And in addition to that, the most stable Windows operating system for Retail Pro version 8 which is Windows 7, that also reached end of life and end of general support with Microsoft. Now, believe it or not, version 9 is actually 12 years old. I honestly had to double check that because I didn't believe it at first, but it is in fact true. It is 12 years old. And while it does not have an official end of life date yet, it's definitely coming soon, and it is currently slated for calendar year 2021. So don't wait until support is gone, right? Move your system to Prism now and eliminate the worry that comes along with end of life. Okay, so as far as version history goes, what about Prism? I know a lot of people feel that Prism is very new, but in reality, it's 5 years old. There have already been over 20 releases and updates, and the current release is extremely stable and established in the marketplace. And I also really want to emphasize that Prism is not Retail Pro 10. It really is the next generation of Retail Pro's software platform. Prism has a well-established presence among many Retail Pro clients, from local retailers like Brew City Brands and Cape May Mac to national and international brands like Puma, GNC, Under Armour, and Hugo Boss. Here we see those few examples, including our customer Cape May Wicker, who's been very happy with their move from version 8 to Prism and was more than happy to provide us with a quote to that effect. We can also provide you with multiple references that you can speak to directly, not only about Prism, but about the upgrade experience with IMS. When it comes to Prism, there are a lot of great new features. I want to highlight a few of them here before we move into the demo in a few minutes. Prism is a completely new and updated interface. It utilizes the same technology as websites, so it can take you beyond the basic screen design that you're currently using in V8 and V9, and allows you to create a POS experience and workflow that's completely unique to your business. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that in the demo as well. Also, Prism runs in a browser like Google Chrome. This allows for lightweight hardware on the front end and simplicity of use and updates. Touch menus are now built in, are included in the base system. You may know them as presets in version 8 as well. Email receipts are now built in and a simple option, whether you're adding an existing customer to a transaction or a customer providing only their email address for a digital receipt. You don't need a special mail server. This can be done with something as simple as a Google or Gmail address. Promotion capability. This has been a huge focus for Retail Pro, and the module you will see today is the culmination of that. There are so many options to build your promos, but they're available in an easy-to-use interface. So I'm excited to show you that functionality. One important, albeit more technical highlight is the ability to create integrations to Prism through multiple API formats. If you're familiar with APIs, then you know that this is pretty much the standard now for integrations. And if the term API is unfamiliar to you, that's okay, because at IMS, we have a full development staff to assist you with any specific needs that you might have. The last highlight, and I'm sure it'll pique some interest, no more polling. Let me repeat that, no more polling. This includes version 8 polling and version 9 ECM. Prism works on a totally new industry standard model for communication. It's virtually real time and it's completely hands off under normal operations. And now the architecture that we discussed in a very simple visual format. And again, this is the architecture that eliminates polling. Did I mention that there's no more polling? Prism works on what's known as a publish and subscribe model. Simply put, you decide which stations will publish their data and which ones will subscribe to the published information. In a basic retail example, the server would publish inventory changes and the POS stations would subscribe to those. And along the same lines, POS stations would publish sales information and the server would subscribe to those. The server can be on-premise, so just a physical computer in your building, or it can be hosted in the IMS cloud. And we can cover that one-on-one as part of an overall upgrade path discussion. The great thing about this model is, unlike scheduled polling, the process happens all the time. If a sales process at a store and the internet's available, the main office immediately gets that information. If the internet is down, the POS simply holds the sale information till it connects again. There's no scheduling, no waiting, and no monitoring of a polling application anymore. And as you can see from this illustration, essentially your Retail Pro main sits in the middle. Again, that could be in the cloud or that could be in your building. And the stores or stations just communicate whenever they can. I have more detailed diagrams of this data flow for anyone who's a bit more technical and wants to see that, but I wanted to keep it simple here for the larger group. Okay, enough explanation. Let's take a look at Prism. For this demo, we're going to look at a basic retailer selling just some women's tops and some various things. So let me pull up my demo system here, which I just have in a virtual machine. So again, very lightweight. As you can see, browser-based. I'm running this in Google Chrome, and very configurable. To be able to do a very high resolution background image is just a simple matter of telling the system where that image is. So everything else here in this design, by the way, is default. This is out of the box. The only thing I did was put this background image in. So everything else you see here, you don't need any design efforts or ability to have it set up the way that this looks and feels. But if you want to, you can totally change the way not only this looks and feels, but the entire workflow. Really access to any button, any option, anywhere you want. So first thing you can see are the touch menus. Again, all fully integrated now. This isn't a separate purchase, a separate module. It's just part of the base program. We can do anything from having multiple menus. So for example, if I go into jewelry, we can see I have necklaces, rings, and earrings. And underneath of necklaces, I have some product. Very simple previous to next page if you have many items on multiple pages, a simple up one level or a main menu option. Yes, we can have pictures as well. So you can see I have just a few examples of that here. What a item image of a shoe might look like for our shoe store background here, and a couple of these collectible canvas tote bags as well. This may be a quick selling item I don't want to scan, and people are buying them right at the register. So just an example of that. Now to do a transaction, we have full capability for customer tracking, customer history, and it's actually much easier, I feel, in Prism to add a new customer. So with the quick customer option, you can see this very quickly pops up a box and says, hey, who's your customer? So I'm just going to come up with a name and add a customer. And I'm going to add an email address. You can, just as in previous versions, require certain information on a transaction, and those boxes would be surrounded with a red border to let the cashier know that that was a required field. I'm going to save that, and it's going to ask if he wants to enroll in our loyalty program. I'm not going to get into the details of customer loyalty, but as you can see, it's fully built into Prism here. Lots of different options for points programs, item-based rewards. Certainly would love to show you that if that's something you're interested in as well. So I'm just simply going to enroll him, and you can see down here a simple message that said they've been enrolled in our default silver loyalty program. Customers' information is now up here, including available loyalty points. If this were an established customer, we could also go in and see full details about their purchase history, items purchased, transaction dates, everything that you're used to from Retail Pro with customer history. I'm just going to add a couple items here to a receipt. So for example, I'm going to do a couple of women's tops. And one of the things you may notice is that as I added a second one, the first one actually went to $10 from $20. If I come in here, I can look at the discount, make any modifications, but I can also see why that discount happened. So the reason is a promo. The source is our promotions module, and I'm going to show you in a little bit how that works. Other nice features, we have the ability to do many things here right at the item level on the receipt. For example, I can come in and see details of this specific item all the way up to including on-hand quantity across all my locations. So very quickly be able to come in and say, you know what, I don't have it here, but I have it at a different location. And if that is the case, we can set the item type to a send sale. Send sale is an option where if I don't have it here, but I want to complete the transaction and get the money, I can, and I can simply send that sale to another location. This is definitely something that will interest people who do sales orders. I can now do cash and carry receipts and sales orders on the same transaction. So if I wanted to come in and say, hey, this t-shirt here in whatever size color combination is currently not available, I can put that on a customer order. That's going to follow all the same rules about deposits and default amounts and requiring a customer. But what's going to happen is it's going to set one item to an order, one to a regular receipt. I'm going to take all the money, and the system's automatically going to create two documents. It's going to create a receipt and create a sales order. There's no more having to do a sales order, back out to do a receipt, or finalizing a receipt within a sales order. You can see I also have the ability to do a return, and I can do things like apply to all items. So if both of these items were returned, I could simply hit apply to all and return, and I would make them return items. Tender, very straightforward. My tender screen is set up like this, where I have my quick cash buttons as options. Default tender is cash because I don't have integrated credit cards here on this system, but you can see I have the ability to go in quickly and get any of my other tenders that are available within the system. I'm simply going to take the exact amount of $30, and we can see that our payments appear here. So we can come in, void them, change them, and of course we can still do multiple split tenders between multiple credit cards, cash, whatever other types of tenders that you wanted to take. And if there were any change, it would appear in this window. And before I go ahead and print a receipt and show you some of those options, I wanted to show you this as well. By default, gift receipts are right here. I can go in, select any or all items that I want for the gift receipt. I can print either one item per receipt, I can print all items to one receipt, or I can do a selection of certain items and print that selection. Again, all built right in now. When I do go to print, we talked about the ability to do email receipts. So because I had a customer on here, their email is automatically populated. And if I didn't have it, I could ask right here and now to say, hey, do you want a digital receipt? Just provide me your email address, and that's it. So I can print, I can email, or I can do both. I have the preview button here just to show you what a basic receipt looks like. Still very, very flexible in document design. It is a brand new and totally different document designer tool, but still allows the same functionality to be able to add logos, control what information is on the receipt, all the way down to return policies, letting people know we're having a 50% off on a second top promotion. And then as we can see, loyalty information here, automatically accumulating from the second I created the customer. They earned 27 points for their loyalty for their purchase today. And then however those points convert to dollars, that's totally up to you. Again, be happy to show you more on that customer loyalty module. Simply going to cancel that. And it's automatically going to take us back here to our next transaction. So the promotions, very easy to come here and go directly into our promotions module. We do, of course, have full security control over features and functionality, just as you have in version 8 and version 9. One example would be allowing people access to the promotions module. You can control that access just like you can control everything else. And here's our promotion here. So rather than create a new one, I'm just going to go in and show you what we did here. As I said, this is a very simple utility. It has 4 basic tabs. General details, what is it? Activation details, when and where. Validation, what do you have to do? And reward, what do you get for doing that? So the general details are just going to be things like name and description, the promotion group, the type. And you can see in types here, we have quite a few options, all the way up to just straight custom, where you design what you want. I always tell people the same thing when they ask about doing multiple promotions and promotions overlapping each other. We do a lot of work with fireworks distributors. And if you've ever purchased fireworks anywhere, you may know that they are the most promotion heavy business that I've ever come in contact with. They can have upwards of 20 or 30 promotions on a single large transaction. And so far, they haven't been able to find a combination that doesn't work here in Prism. As I said, a lot of work was put into this promotions module, and it came out really well. Coupons as well. We can do individual coupon numbers. So rather than just send out a generic coupon code, you can easily upload a list of, say, 1,000 numbers into Retail Pro, and then send out 1,000 individualized coupons. So you not only know that a person came in and used the coupon you sent out, you actually know exactly who that was that you sent it to. And then the activation details, we can control anything from the start date and time down to the minute to an end date and time. So if you wanted to run a late weekday flash sale or something, over the course of a weekend, but at interesting start and end times to grab people's attention, you can do that. You can control what stores they apply to. You can control anything about the where and when. Then, as I said, validation is just what do you need to do? You need to buy one item, and I have a filter set up that says the item has to be, it has to have T or top in the description. You can also do things like an item subtotal. This only applies to $20 and up tops, or the sales subtotal. You have to spend $100 in order to get this promotion. So again, lots of different options. And then the reward is just the flip of that, right? What do you get? You get one of the same item at a discount percent of 50. You can also do discount dollars or a fixed price or use a price level price for any of these as well. So that's it, right? It's just what, where, and when, what do I have to do, and what do I get, and I've created a promotion. We can see that we can keep a full list of promotions in here. You can activate and deactivate these. So if you run a weekly sale, you can simply turn that sale on and off. These promotions automatically go out to all of your point of sale stations or whatever stores and stations that you said should get the promotion inside of that setup. So as I said, a lot of options, but very simple and straightforward for people to come in here and understand this. We've had several people who kind of came in here and played around after getting Prism, and we're already setting up and testing their own promotions before we actually even worked with them. Additional point of sale features, just to kind of give you an idea of what is here. We still have check-in, check-out, so we have time clock functionality, changing tills and drawers, pretty much standard stuff, disbursements, paid in, paid out, and then of course X and Z out functionality as a standard. That is point of sale, but what about everything else? Well, underneath here, simple store operations, but robust, has all of the features that we need for all of our inventory movement and sales. So under merchandise, I've got, of course, my inventory. When I go into my inventory, I can look up items. This is an item I was looking up earlier, and we can see everything about it. We can also, I'm just going to jump back. We can also still do a physical inventory, the modules here, of course, vendors and departments, different types of adjustment memos, now all broken out, so I can simply select the one I want versus selecting a memo and then having to choose a type. Of course, purchasing, purchase orders, pending purchase orders, and then a lookup from what's existing, and receiving. So we can still do vouchers. For anyone on version 9, you're probably familiar with ASNs. So all of that functionality and capability is still here. Vendor invoices for our 3-way matches and transfers. So anyone with multiple locations or even a store and a warehouse, all the transfer capability is still here, including slips, transfer orders, and if you're doing ASNs, transfer verification. And as I had mentioned before, employee management. We still have the concept of employees and groups, and all of the security levels are very, very similar. The reason I keep saying we still have, or this is still this way, is just to emphasize the point that you're going to be familiar with the overall concepts and terminology of Prism, of the new version. So while there's certainly going to be a learning curve and definitely an updated look and feel, really the underlying functionality of what you do will remain the same. You guys will still have all of the capabilities that you see here, and it will make sense to you. It'll just take a little time to get used to the updated interface, which I can tell you is totally worth it. And hopefully you feel the same way based on what you see here with the overall modern look and feel. Okay, so as I said, that was a very high level demo. I wanted to be sure and highlight everything that is available within the time slot that we have here. And certainly we want to do a custom demo if you want to see more. We want to show you loyalty. We want to show you what the system would look like with your merchandise in there, with your background images, and really give you a good look and feel what Prism's going to look like for you. And so, as I said, now that you've seen the high level and all the highlights, let's talk about next steps. So just to reemphasize, reach out for a custom demo. We'll go into more detail and we'll really set it up nice so that you feel like it's your system. And then in conjunction with that, let's talk about the upgrade path. And that's based on what version you are and what your exact needs are. Right, so there are some differences going from 8 to Prism and 9 to Prism, but it's nothing you need to be concerned with. That's for us to handle, but we just want to make sure that we have all the details going into your project and that we understand the best upgrade path that fits your needs. And then after we get that path figured out, you and your account manager will go over some options, and then we get you on the schedule. Right, we've been very busy with upgrades, certainly with end of life for 8 and Windows 7, but really the more people we show Prism, the more people want to go with it. So as I said, the sooner you get in the queue, the sooner we'll have you up and running. Okay, so let's do one more poll before we jump into some questions. And the poll is simple. After going through this webinar, has your level of comfort with Prism changed? So just as before on the screen in front of you, there should be a poll question awaiting your input. The reason I asked this question, and actually a lot of the reason for this webinar today, is just based on feedback that I keep hearing that many people feel that Prism is a brand new product and that it's not in a lot of stores, or that you can simply stay on your older version and continue to get updates and support. So hopefully the results show us that the information that we reviewed has changed a few minds, but I'll give a minute for those results to come in, and then we'll find out. Just going to allow about 10 more seconds to get to the full minute. It looks like we definitely still have some people weighing in. All right, it does look like most people in attendance have put their responses in, so let's go ahead and take a look at those results. Okay, 82% of people are more comfortable now. That certainly makes me feel better. It makes me feel like that this was worth it. And I get it. You know, the other 9% and 9% still not fully comfortable. We fully understand that, but just let's talk about it, right? Let's talk one-on-one. Let's see what's keeping you from getting over that hurdle, and let's try to get you there. And then for the people who are already comfortable and just not ready to upgrade, certainly there's a lot of valid reasons for that, depending on your seasonality or really anything else going on. So certainly if there's anything we can help you with to make the timing better now, we'd love to do that. Or even just to give you a better idea of what the whole process is going to look like and get you ready for that for whenever that timing is, whether it's next week, next month, or later this year. Really, let's just start the process because it doesn't hurt to get started. Okay, Time for some questions. So I know that our moderators have been putting some questions together. Let me go ahead and pull that window up. Okay. Here we go. All right, great. So simple question first. Is there some place to see the first two webinars? Did cover that? Yeah, absolutely. If you need a link, please reach out to me. My email address is attached to the webinar, so you can reply to that, and we'll get you all set up on that. Let's see. How would the main know that there's missing data waiting on an offline station? That's a great question, right? So when I say there's no more polling, that's not to say that everything's just going to happen and you're never going to know what's going on. We still do have the ability to find out where we might be missing data. Of course, we're going to do our matching between the main and the point of sale stations. But rather than the polling utility or an ECM tool that you're used to, it's a much simpler dashboard. So if that's something you want to take a look at, if you are curious about the communication, absolutely we can do that as part of a bigger demo to really show you what that dashboard looks like. And that's just going to show you when things were sent and when they were received, so you still have that visibility, right? Because I can say as much as I want that, hey, it's just going to happen, don't worry about it. But yeah, there are times that your network goes down, your network stays down. So we still do have that information to be able to find out where those issues lie. Can Prism handle dual cache store deployment for a single POS? Absolutely. Yeah, it can handle dual cache store, I should say multiple cache stores. So anyone who's currently doing that or looking to do that, that can be handled as well. Can Prism work in a cloud environment? Yeah, absolutely. As I said, we have our own IMS cloud. Be happy to talk to you about that. Pricing is very, very competitive on that, especially for the not just the cloud space, but for the suite of tools that comes with it. Things like backup and recovery, antivirus, really all the things that you need. And keep in mind with the cloud, you don't have a server or a computer in your building, right? We handle the updates, we handle the maintenance. All of that is stuff that is now off of your plate. Back office users simply connect to the cloud from anywhere they have internet, and the point of sale stations and stores just communicate directly with that cloud as long as they've got internet. How real time is the data flow from POS or stores to the cloud main? That's a great question. And really, it's as real time as your connectivity. As I said, with publish and subscribe, a station that is publishing simply does it when a change happens. So the second I complete a sale, that station says, hey, I've got some sales data for anyone who's subscribed to me. It's here when you want to grab it or when you're able to grab it. Do you have e-commerce integration? And then a second follow-up about WooCommerce. Yeah, so all the same e-commerce rules still apply with Prism as they did with 8 or 9. So we still have the ability to integrate the e-commerce. We still have the ability to send that data back and forth. And certainly our web team is still working with WooCommerce as one of the really the major 4 that we looked at when we did our e-commerce webinar. Let's see. Let me scroll down. I'm getting just a couple repeat questions here, so I'm just trying to skip past those. No reason to cover them again. Does my history come over from version 8? That's a great question as well. And really from version 9, let's talk about that the same. Yes, your history comes over as much as you want of it. Certainly, we are going to give you recommendations and best practices on how much really makes sense to bring over. And I'm only talking about transactional history. Of course, it makes sense to bring all your items and your vendors and your departments and all of that information, but it may not make sense if you have 20 years worth of sales history to bring all of that in. But we will talk to you about that and how no matter what, you're still going to have access to all of that data. So yeah, great question, certainly from version 8 and from version 9 as well. Is everything you're showing in the base product? Yes, Everything that we looked at today is in the base Retail Pro product. Anything from touch menus to the customer loyalty to the email receipts, it's all built in. Nothing we talked about, aside from something like e-commerce and the question and answer here, but everything we looked at and reviewed as part of the presentation is included. Can I run Prism on a tablet? Yeah, absolutely. Right. With the browser-based format, Prism can run on a standard point of sale Windows computer, but it can also run in tablet formats. There is an iOS companion app. It can run in a browser on Android. So there's many different options for those types of formats. And then, of course, in 2 weeks from now, we're going to cover mobile point of sale as well. And we have a lot of interesting options there that I think you guys are really going to like. So please get set up for that one as well. Let me see. I just need to expand this out. I got a couple longer questions here that to be able to see all the way. My area loses internet often, sometimes for hours. How would I operate without a local server? Another good question. And, we didn't cover enough of this in the architecture. As I said, I wanted to keep that real high level. So I really actually appreciate this question because we can dig in just a little bit more. So when we say that we don't have a local server, that's okay. Because the way this structure works is the point of sale devices still have a local copy of the data. So every point of sale has the latest data that it received before the internet went out. And that is the reason it is able to hold sales information until that internet comes back up. And that is the reason why you're able to still transact no matter what. So if it goes down for a minute or an hour or a day, it's still going to have information and you're still going to be able to process sales. Many people in version 8 and version 9 did this with full installations and a whole, we always called it a stadium setup, but really that is just the default now with Prism. That's just how it runs for anybody. Yeah, great question. And let me see, how long does a Prism upgrade take? I mean, I hate to say it depends, but it depends. So certainly, let's talk about that. In general, depending on how much data, history, how much time you have to train. So are we training for 2 hours at a time over a period of some weeks because we're doing it once a week? Or are you doing it boot camp style to say, hey, let's just knock it all out in a few days and then be ready to go? So I would say for anyone who's been through any upgrade with us, it's probably about the same length of time, anywhere from a couple weeks to, longer, just depending on, a lot of it depends on you. This is the same thing we talked about with e-commerce is, we can have an e-commerce site up and running in, 4 days. It's happened. But that was someone who was 100% dedicated to the project for those 4 days. So that just really depends. Do you have gift cards built into the system? So yes is the answer. There's a few options for that. One, if you're processing with or utilizing TSYS, and I didn't mention that in the demo, so I'll mention that now. But if you're using TSYS, or as many people know them, Cayenne, none of that changes. That's all still fully integrated with Prism. Any gift cards you're doing through them will still function. But there's actually built-in gift card functionality. So the same way that the customer loyalty works, and that works across all locations and communicates in real time, there's built-in gift card functionality as well. It's something called Centrals. Centrals is just a utility in Retail Pro that allows us to do things like loyalty, gift cards, sharing of customer data in any fashion that we choose. And then, of course, we have our product that we at IMS developed, which is Status. Status is, and the reason I mentioned that last is because yes, it does gift cards, but really it's a lot more than that. It also does some really slick stuff with promotions as well, stuff that we can do beyond the promotions module, and really offer you things well beyond the gift card. And you're not going to be going through a processor either with Status where you're paying a bunch of per transaction fees. So yeah, that's a great question. And a related question I'm going to jump back to, because I just saw it here and I realized I skipped it, is GiveX supported in Prism? So that's kind of along the same lines. As of right now, no, but every day there is support for different products and different add-ons being done. And as I said, there's multiple API formats already available. So that is not something that would be too challenging. It's just something that would need to be scoped out and done. So the product's just developing all the time because of how simple integrations are now. And let me just see if I missed anything. I think that is all of the questions. I always try to cover everything, especially given that we have the time. And I really do appreciate all these questions. This was a good webinar for me, and next week will be the same. I like to do a little bit more demo and a little less PowerPoint, and the Q&A is that as well. It's more just kind of, having a conversation versus giving a presentation. Okay, so I do think that is all the questions. And then, of course, lastly, I just wanted to say a simple thank you. I know I've done this every week, but I really do hope that you guys enjoyed the webinar, found the time to be valuable, and please join us for the additional ones in this series. Present them every Thursday at 10 a.m. At 11 a.m. Eastern. We're going all the way through June 4th. Next week, we're going to look at Retail Pro reports as a follow-up to today. And just like Prism, a lot has changed in reporting. So you don't want to miss that one as well. We're going to go over some things like the new visual dashboards, the ability to email and time reports, auto alerts. So we're going to cover a lot of good stuff, and that's going to be a lot of demo as well. So same as this week, a little less PowerPoint, a little more demo. Just wanted to say thank you again from all of us here at IMS. Of course, we hope everyone stays safe. We hope that some of you are already getting back to business, and for everyone else that we get back there soon. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.